Welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast, sponsored by the Draft Professors. Today, joined by two of the OGs, Owen and Newt. It is really good to see you guys. Newt, what is the good word in Green Bay land?
Man, everything's just around the floor right now, I'll tell you. I don't think I can pull up anything that is Packer related and not have that be the conversation. Or it's just Bears fans trolling on some comment that we're talking about the offseason and they're not. Which is, that's I get it. This is how the way rivalry goes, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Obviously, looking now full swing with Cheesehead TV draft stuff. So, I have a question. Oh, Owen, am I officially going to be in a published article with you this upcoming year?
You are indeed.
Yeah, I don't know if you wanted to break the news, but I was excited about it.
I mentioned it last night on last night's show. Clearly,
Okay.
you didn't watch.
No, I didn't.
Yeah,
the minute it turned to Bill, I was like, I don't need to watch this anymore.
Last night it was Senior Bowl wide receivers.
Oh, shit. Yeah. All right. I probably should have checked that out, actually.
Well, so Newt, so Owen's podcast with Randall on Tuesdays. Randall and Owen disagree more than you and Owen disagree. So that's like anytime somebody disagrees with Owen, it is first class podcast entertainment.
Well, hold on,
I mean that in a kind way because of how, like, Owen, I like how you listen to other people, can see their point of view, state your point of view without like being like condescending, I guess is the right way to say it. So
yeah, not to contradict everything you just said, but you'll notice I'm wearing my Malik Willis Liberty jersey, representing the guy who stood out at the Senior Bowl. But I did actually have this as a cover to rock the.
Oh my God, I hate you so much.
Wanted to start off this podcast a little hostile here. Went from wearing the better Green Bay quarterback jersey to now
wearing a Bears jersey. It took me a minute to figure out what that was.
You got a nice Eddie Jackson jersey.
I hate you. I think I just heard my kids calling me. I think I got to sign off for the night.
Wanted to start this off with some good hostility there.
Oh my God.
We're here to talk about the defensive linemen in the Senior Bowl and the Shrine Bowl. And one of the reasons we do this is like when we do scouting reports, which, you guys were breaking down defensive linemen for the better part of 8 to 10 weeks. I see a lot of players at the Senior and the Shrine that we missed. And I know, Newt, from talking with you ahead of the podcast, you said that there's some guys on the Shrine that you're glad we're doing this podcast because you found some players you like. So you want to talk about that for a few minutes?
Yeah, so just to kind of shout out really quick, as I know that Owen was higher on him too, but Malachi Lawrence is going to be at the Shrine Bowl. I think he's going to be a really fun player, and I think also a guy that has, maybe not had the year. Tyreek Sapp is going to be another guy that definitely is looking to kind of rise at the Shrine Bowl. Anthony Lucas as well, just kind of mentioning those, really athletic player, hasn't really put it together. And then there are some other guys as well. I was able to, looking at, kind of like mock draft database, consensus board, what we discussed, what we talked about. Is it Vincent Anthony, or is he at the Senior Bowl? Vincent Anthony Jr.
He's at the Senior.
Yeah, I think the Duke players are at the Senior.
Yeah. No, Wesley Williams.
Wesley Williams is in the Shrine.
It's Shrine, yeah. Among a couple others, Patrick Payton, Ethan Burke. But guys that it's like, okay, I'm glad we got eyes on those. But the edge class, I think, is okay. When I went over to and I took a look at the guys for the defensive line, defensive tackles for the inside, one of the guys that absolutely blew up for me was Tyler Onyedim out of Texas A&M. It was just absolutely incredible to see him play. And we watched Albert Regis and talked about him earlier in the year and kind of how he was, probably like a DT4, DT3, maybe upside in a interior defensive lineman rotation. I saw Onyedim, I'm sorry if I'm saying it wrong. And I was just taken aback at the way that he moves on the interior. A little bit of a lighter player, 293 pounds at 6'3". But man, he's got some explosion and he's got some burst. And I thought I was going to walk away talking about Grayson Halton is one of the better pass rushing interior players. I think Onyedim is going to be able to be that and more. I've got him right now as defensive tackle 9 after I went in and did a full breakdown of him. I fell in love with them and kind of that size that it's not too small. And the athleticism matches that, yet he still has some decent play strength, 34-inch arms, really kind of everything that you're looking for from that lighter defensive tackle 3, yet still like decent play strength to be able to be successful within there. So Tyler Onyedim, I think, especially if he can showcase some really fun and exciting reps down at the Shrine Bowl, take advantage of one-on-ones, and they're geared more towards defensive players in the pass rush drills anyways. I think that he's going to have an opportunity to really help himself out there.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't really gotten eyes on Onyedim. There was a lot of guys I tried to check out. The Shrine, a lot of them, I didn't really prep that side as much. I watched all the guys for the Senior Bowl. The Shrine, it was just a lot of names that we had already watched in preparation for this podcast over the week. So a lot of those guys I just like touched up a little bit on, refreshed myself, and I'm gonna have to, now that he's your D tackle 9, he's gonna be in top 10 conversations. I'm gonna have to go in and watch him. None of the guys I watched that we hadn't previously gotten eyes on cracked my top 10. I think the highest one I graded that ended up landing pretty highly on my board was like D tackle 15, and he's over at the Senior Bowl. So I'm glad to see you found a guy that you may be able to hitch your wagon to as one of your my guys there before I come in and give him around 3
Yeah, he's gonna be a top 50 guy for Owen in about 3 weeks. No, I mean, aside from that though, it was kind of the case where for the Senior Bowl, and I checked out some more of those guys, but no one even cracked really a top 20 spot for me. Aside from him, I thought we did a pretty good job of hitting some of those big names throughout. So, but yeah, Tyler Onyedim out of Texas A&M, really, really like the tape. A lot of fun. If you're looking for an explosive athlete on the inside, he is your guy.
So he was mentioned by somebody because I ended up adding him to the simulator so somebody could like make a defensive line board.
Okay.
So but he was a late ad. Like he was not in the simulator when we started scouting reports.
Yeah. And I think that honestly with him, I took a look in some of the later tape, and I'm trying to pull it up right now for where he was in terms of his play throughout the season. I think he really started to come on a little bit later. Against Texas, he had a sack, a quarterback hit, and 2 hurries. Now, Texas' offensive line is not really anything to be celebrated this year, but he's doing it against, DJ Campbell, who I think is like, he's a draftable player. You like to see that when he's able to get that against guys that you're probably going to see in the league at the next level. Miami, he got a sack against them. And I think he really did some things to kind of turn it on for himself, especially with his pass rush a little bit later. And like I said, he's not going to be a space eater, but he's going to be a guy that I think is capable and serviceable on the inside when it comes to maybe some early down situations to like kind of, hold his own, maybe not take over though.
Yeah, there's a couple guys in the Shrine roster I'd like to give a shout out to. George Gums of Florida was talked a lot about in the summer and then became invisible. So if he does something in the Shrine Bowl, we should point that out because like right now, I don't think his grade is draftable, but there might be something that happens in the Shrine where whatever we were expecting in the summer comes back. Is that a player that either of you have had eyes on recently?
I saw his name and like recognized it, and I had no idea why I recognized it because I did like I've watched Florida guys like Tyreek Sapp. I'm a big fan of Tyreek Sapp, but like I was like, why do I know Gums other than it being like a really funny name? And I remember now that you bring up that he did get some a little bit of hype in the preseason process, but I haven't actually sat down and taken the time to watch him specifically.
And I was surprised. Like somebody told me that I thought he was going back to school or something happened, but it's good to see him at the Shrine. It's good to see him engaged in the draft process. That I would definitely say keep an eye on him. You had mentioned Malachi Lawrence, so it was interesting. We did a Seahawks mock at 7:00 before this. So Seattle needs an edge. And he wasn't dropping to round 2 for Seattle. So Peter took him in round 1.
Okay, so that's a bit aggressive in my opinion.
Well, and Pete, that was the last mock where like he's looking at the board saying, I don't like any of this. It's Malachi Lawrence round 1 to Seattle.
That seems like a Seattle pick from like years past where they would grab like, oh, who was that edge from TCU they drafted in like the first round that did nothing? Collier? Was that his last name? Collier?
Collier. I'm not sure.
Because there was a run of picks where they took like Rashad Penny. What was his name? Because it was another one of those picks where it was like, why are you? They went way off the board for an edge rusher in the past because they had their types, their body types they liked, and they were never afraid to like go off the board.
Well, if they like high waisted leggy dudes, then yeah, I can see Malachi Lawrence going there.
So you guys were top 50 on Lawrence, right?
I've got him right now at number 46 on my board. I've got a lot of guys that are going to go in ahead of him. So like the second round pick, that makes sense to me. Like seeing him there, I'm totally on board with that. But that first round, that's a bit aggressive.
Yep.
He's 64 on my board.
Okay. And like I said, I haven't regraded any quarterbacks yet. I'm getting to that. I'm taking a look at the cornerbacks right now and getting grades on them. So a lot of these guys that I have are going to start to kind of like tick their way back as I start to fill out some more of these position groups. But I look, and if you're telling me that Seattle picking at the back half of the first round,
that's not back half. They're literally last.
The last part of
right,
but even the last part of the first round, where there's I've got Malachi Lawrence's edge 8, and I don't know if even, I mean, like 4 edges, 5 edges in this class go in the first round.
Well,
but it's a bit rich.
So when you're at the back half of round 1, that means first of all you're a playoff team.
Correct.
Second, if you have a need and you have to fill it, so like apparently Seattle right now has 3 edges that are under contract for next year, and one of those contracts is expiring in 2026. So they need to add something to the room, and Seattle only has 4 draft picks.
Right.
1, 2, 3, and 6.
And that's fair. I even pick 32. If there were 5 edges that were taken in the first 31 picks, I would be really surprised.
So that was, Zion Young off the board. That was Parker, Falk, Bain off the board, and there was at least one other edge that
Bailey off the board.
Cassius Howell was off the board too.
Yeah.
So but Peter was going through that logic because that was like edge 6 or 7 for him. But he says, well, if I can't get him in round 2, I'm going to try it in round 1. But
he must have missed out on the man named Akeem Mesidor and not known his greatness.
And also, for clarification, the Seahawks was LJ Collier, 27th overall or 29th overall in the 2019 NFL draft. Was a guy like he was a projected like 3rd round pick. They took him at 29th because it was like, oh, that's their guy. They like him and they're willing to go and take those swings. Now I don't think the regime's around anymore. I'm pretty sure the GM's gone at this point, but that was kind of like their history of taking guys. They did that with him. They took Rashad Penny. I remember they took another safety. And then like the second round ended up flaming out for them. But like they were always hyper aggressive with going and getting like their types of dudes. So if Malachi Lawrence is the type of edge rusher that the Seahawks like, I wouldn't be shocked if this was the same team with the same culture that would go up and attack that need with a player they really like.
Yeah. I mean, Lawrence he's not like the other guys on here where, he's a long dude that can win, in my opinion, with both power and some good finesse. I don't think he's like super bendy or anything in that aspect, but he's super experienced. The length and the frame that he plays with, you're not getting out a lot of these other guys. Like, he's such a different rusher than like a Cassius Howell. And, looking at some of the other guys around there, like a Romello Height or something like that, where it like I can definitely see it, but I'm kind of the camp and looking through this where I could see, for me, Derek Moore moving ahead of Malachi Lawrence in my rankings when it's all said and done. I could see potentially even with the athleticism, R. Mason Thomas moving up. I don't know if ahead of Malachi Lawrence, in my opinion, but kind of making a push for that. So that first round's rich. I do understand when you explain the logic, Jim. But I like having, a guy like Malachi Lawrence that I think, when we talk about him, like fringe top 50, top 75, though, having him at the Shrine Bowl is a ton of fun. So I think it's a great get for them.
Okay. Oh, and anybody else at the Shrine that you want to shout out?
So I want to obviously got to shout out my guy at the D tackles position.
I was going to light you up if you did not. I was going to go nuclear.
DeMonte Capehart. Come on,
the D tackle, nose tackle from Clemson. So in preparation for this, I went through and reread a bunch of articles covering the last 5 years of the Shrine and the Senior Bowl, like winners and losers, what different people covering the events, stated as players that went there and succeeded or didn't. And the themes with the D line, especially at the Shrine, was a lot more of players that can do their job, show like good fundamentals. It was a lot less of the flash and of the one-on-one drills. Like, there were some guys who won with that and they were highlighted, but a lot more you saw guys getting highlighted in the Shrine Bowl, especially at D tackle, where it was they are sound against the run, they're able to maintain their gaps, play with good leverage, like a lot of stuff that's like, okay, we're looking for fundamental, like rotational piece type players. Whereas the Senior Bowl is a bit more flashy, guys who won like the one-on-ones or were showing up the high level competition there. That's where you saw a lot more of the winners or losers on the defensive line side of that for edge and D tackle in the Senior Bowl. So I think a guy like Capehart is going to be able to go there, and with his size, pedigree at playing at Clemson for 5 years, strength against the run, yeah, he's not going to give you anything at all as a pass rusher, but I think having him go there and be a physical presence that like some of these other offensive linemen, especially some of these smaller school guys, are going to struggle to get their hands full on, or they have their hands full with him. I think that's a guy that can jump out to teams and he'll solidify himself as like a draftable player, unlike what Newt thinks. For DeMonte Capehart, since he's clearly the worst player of all time, and he's been on that train for the last 2 seasons at this point. I think he'll be definitely solidify himself as a bit better than that.
I have to add more players that are going to return to school to scouting reports just so that you guys can cover them twice.
One other name real quick to add to that, and I think is a guy that I just talked about how most of the time it's physically dominant but technically sound players that show up at the Shrine Bowl. I think the one guy may be able to buck that trend and to show up because he excels in some one-on-one opportunities and is just a purely better athlete than a lot of guys on the interior is Darrell Jackson from Florida State. Like, he's going to go there, and if he can find anything that he had from 2 seasons ago now with his pass rush and those one-on-ones, while still being like this big dominating physical presence there, similar to that mold of Capehart when it comes to playing in the actual game, but also impacting it as a pass rusher, I think you could really see his stock go up in this one as well, especially when you finally get NFL coaches to get their hands on him and kind of dive into what he can do and kind of start tinkering with that a bit with his utilization at the game.
Yeah, no, I like that shout out for Jackson Jr. We've talked about him a ton. I think worth mentioning also Godfather being there, kind of showcasing where he is. I think there's a similar vein to Capehart and really everything that you said with Capehart. I think Corleone will be able to do the same thing. I think one player, I'll mention one more and then kind of move on. Landon Robinson out of Navy, fun player out of the AAC. He was, I think, like the defensive player of the year for the AAC with Navy's been such a staple for them. And I know he's really acclaimed in their system and everything that they've done. I don't know how well his game transfers to the NFL. I think he's a smaller player and he's able to win at the competition level that he's at right now. But I think he possibly is going to face some growing pains with that. However, in the sense that, hey, we have some smaller guys, on the interior offensive side of the line. We also have some guys that are, in the same boat of the Caparts and the Corleones that are going to be I don't want to say second tier, but some guys for some big schools, but might not be that star player. And, if you can prove yourself against some of those interior offensive linemen for a Power 4 school, you can really help yourself out. And I think Landon Robinson is really going to look forward to taking advantage of that.
And one last quick thing about the Shrine. I was just looking through the offensive line board here for who's going to be invited. And this interior offensive line class for the Shrine is actually pretty stacked looking at it. Like, you have players that I genuinely have either liked or currently do like when it comes to like DJ Campbell, Inez Cooper, Giovanni El Hadid, Micah Morris, Fabechi and Nwewu, Amajri Adams. Like, the interior offensive line is stacked. Oh, not to mention Brian Parker.
Brian Parker the second, yeah.
You didn't even mention Jaeger Burton yet.
Jaeger Burton. I haven't gotten eyes on him yet.
I thought he was the guy from Kentucky that you like.
He is from Kentucky, but we don't know if Owen likes him apparently.
No, Joshua Braun was the guy from Kentucky I liked.
Misunderstood. Okay.
But looking at that class, like, I really do think that, the D tackle and edges have some good players on there. The interior offensive line is pretty stacked. But looking at the offensive tackles, outside of Keegan Trost, I don't really like any of these guys, to be honest with you. Like, I know a lot of people like Fa'amo from Wake Forest. I'm not there with him, especially even like if he moved inside, I'm still not really particularly there with him myself. So, like, the only name that really jumps out to me is to be like a player that could put up a big showing would be Trost, and everyone else. I do think these edges might be able to pick up some good wins there this week, and whereas the D tackles may struggle because there is quite a bit of talent on the interior offensive line for this game. So that'll be interesting to watch.
And then in general, though, this class is missing offensive tackle.
And I think that's reflected, yeah.
Right, and that's reflected. So I think Diego Pounds, Emil Wagner are some other players that the other offensive line podcasts liked. But like Emil Wagner was still early day 3. It wasn't really high, but he might be one of the better offensive tackles at the Shrine.
The last thing I remember about from Emil Wagner is watching him get punked in week 1 by Ruben Bain repeatedly. Like, it's one arm.
To be fair, most people get punked by Ruben Bain repeatedly.
That's fair.
Okay, why don't we flip to the Senior Bowl? So, Owen, when you watched the Senior Bowl or made sure that those guys were on your board, did anybody surprise you? Like, we didn't cover them on a podcast and it was a first watch for you. Did somebody kind of jump off the tape to you?
Yeah, there's one guy in particular. There's a couple of guys I would want to shout out later on when we get to more towards the end of this. But one dude who absolutely kind of caught my eye, and I ended up doing like a full-on like watch through and write up for him, kind of like what Newt did with the A&M player for the Shrine, is Bryson Eason.
Tyler Onyedim is his name. Let's remember this.
Well, what do you know about Bryson Eason, Newt, from Tennessee?
Bryson Eason. I looked at him, didn't I? I did. I know I did. And I have him as my lowest graded defensive interior player of everyone I've looked at.
No way. That's insane.
I'm dead serious. I do.
So Bryson Eason, he is 6'3", 315, was a converted linebacker to D tackle for Tennessee. And in the games I watched the Virginia Tech game, the Alabama game, the Illinois Bowl game in the Alabama game. And in those games specifically, he flashed a ton for me. Like, he flat-backed Jaden Roberts and he flat-backed Caden Proctor in the same Alabama game. He's a guy that when he's on, he's like awesome. Like, stacking, shedding, especially that Illinois Bowl game. He had like 10 tackles in that game, a tackle for loss and a sack. He had a pass batted down behind the line of scrimmage on like a running back screen. Like, he was explosive, able to use his hands to kind of control, had very active hands. stacking and shedding, getting off blocks, and making impact in the run game. Now he's not the most consistent player where you'll see some plays he's getting off the ball really well and converting speed to power. And like I said, flat backing these big, massive dudes that are towards the upper end of our big boards here for offensive linemen. And other plays, he's just kind of getting washed out. Doesn't really have a lot of juice in him. And I think that's a motor issue because a lot of plays as well, if he's not in the immediate vicinity of it, you can see him kind of taking the gas off the pedal there. So I do think there is maybe an effort concern or maybe just a down-to-down consistency with conditioning. But for me, he's a guy that when he is flashing, it's some of the best stuff I've seen from this group of guys that I did not personally get an eyes on before doing this exercise. And the fact that he's a transition player from linebacker, he has some of those more better instincts with his eyes when tracking the ball in the backfield. He's a guy that if I get him in there and I'm allowed to have a rotation, him in my rotation, either as, he played 5 tech for Tennessee, he played 1 tech, he played 3 tech. He was able to, he doesn't have the best pad level, but he does have like a natural core strength to be able to hold up against double teams when he wants to. Again, this is all with a caveat of it. Whenever he wants to put it on, he can put it on. So he has some of the best plays of this group, and then he just kind of disappears for a bit. So he's the guy that if I am a coach at the Senior Bowl, like one of these AFC or NFC defensive line coaches that gets my hands on him, he's someone I'm doing extensive research on, maybe finding out what was going on there with Tennessee, and seeing if I can really pull some more stuff out of him this week at the Senior Bowl here. So he's a guy that popped for me, especially in some of those 2 games, the bowl game against Illinois, where they have some offensive linemen for Illinois that we covered in the lead up for this in the podcast, but as well as like Alabama, where they have dudes across that line. Like we covered Brailsford and Roberts and Proctor, and he was having some pretty dominant reps against them as well. So that's a guy that I'm surprised Newt has him as low as he does. But I think it's just more of you have to catch him on the right down in the right game type of player.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Newt.
What
games did you watch for Bryson Eason?
So to be fair, I only saw him for 1 game because a lot of these guys that I didn't have eyes on, I wanted to put eyes on, but I have an asterisk that it's only 1 game. And it was Vandy was the game that I got eyes on him. I wanted to see him, especially with Pavia and, especially kind of taking a look at that, what he was able to do. So I want to go back and I want to watch the Bama film, but I don't know why I find this funny, but it's like 100% contradictory. Does not use hand and length well to get off blocks effectively is something I have written down in his weaknesses. I think he's got great length. I think he's got a pretty good first step, but I don't think the functional play strength is there. And I think that the production throughout a 6-year career is a little bit scary when you put that in the light of, he's a linebacker recruit and he just transitioned the position. Maybe it makes me feel a little bit better, but then maybe it doesn't. And I just am not super comfortable with it, but I will because I want to go back and watch all of these guys for defensive tackle and edge that are Senior Bowl guys, especially for like when I do my write-up on them for the draft guide. I'm going to definitely put eyes on him from the Bama game and kind of see some of those exciting plays.
Yeah, the Bama film especially, he'll pop a lot. And then the Illinois game is where he made a lot more of those plays with his hands and affecting the run game, which was the last game of his career. He got the most run in that game specifically. He was very much in a heavy rotation with Tennessee where, I'm watching, you get him as a full drive and then he's not in it at all. And then he's in on goal line stands and then he's not in for all 4 downs of a goal line stand type thing where it's just a lot of he's in or he's out. And I think with Tennessee, we've seen in the past, like with Omar Norman Lott and other players that have come out of that system where they just rotate their D tackles a ton. And I think he kind of suffered from that, especially with being a guy that was late transitioning from a position. Like I think he was recruited as a linebacker, was a linebacker there his first year. Then there was stats saying he was 6'3", 290, and then they said he bumped up to 6'3", 315. So it was a lot of like weight changes and just developing his body more so. So I think he may be a guy that's more of a late bloomer.
Yeah, I like the call out to Norman Lott. That was one of the things, other conversations with him aside, it was so maddening to get eyes on him last year when he played like 30 snaps a game. And it's one of those things where I think, John, any Tennessee player, I hate watching Tennessee film because it's the most frustrating thing in the world because they run the dumbest system in the world on offense. And on defense, they have guys that are on a freaking carousel where it makes scouting that like it's like they don't want their guys to go to the NFL. They want them all to be, Bryson Easton's played 6 years at Tennessee and then just come on as a coach for strength and conditioning. I don't know. It drives me nuts, man.
That's what them. Their running backs are absolutely insane to watch at Tennessee because it's so it's annoying, so annoying.
So other defensive linemen, who are your 3 highest graded defensive linemen, whether they be edge or interior at the Senior Bowl?
Oh, damn it. Banks, I'm going to guess, is going to be up there. Let me flip to my edge board and take a look.
Is it Banks, Bailey, and either
Parker.
Hunter or Parker?
Parker, yeah. Banks, Bailey, and Parker. I have basically the same grade on Bailey and Banks, and then Parker I have just a little bit above them. They're all like fringe first round guys for me. And by that I mean they're like definitely top 32. But fringe first round grade, I should say.
And then is the 4th Mesidor?
No, I've got Mesidor is my edge 6. Howell would be probably next.
Got it. Owen, who are your 3 or 4 highest graded interior or edge players at the Senior Bowl?
So just looking at my board real quick, so I was doing it while you guys were speaking. It would be Banks, Parker, Mesidor, and then
Bailey.
I'm not the highest on.
Undraftable, according to Owen.
Yes, undraftable according to me.
Wait, hold on. Is Mesidor at the Senior Bowl?
He's on the list that I'm looking at.
I'm looking at the accepted invites on seniorbowl.com and I don't see him.
He's between Overton and Akis.
What?
I sorted by position.
Yeah.
So when I sorted, he is between Akis and
because they got him listed. Okay. They got him listed as a defensive lineman, not a defensive end. That's why.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have actually in their respective positions and overall, just pulling up the big board, I have Dominic Orange over David or Bailey.
Oh wow. Okay.
I'm not. I really was not I have Bailey in the 2nd round. But
What?
I don't love Bailey, to be honest.
Big Citrus over David Bailey?
Well,
what are we doing here?
You know something, like Owen, if I'm catching some of your grading, some of this may make sense because Bailey is very scheme specific. There's going to be certain, right? And if somebody can't play in every scheme, I think if I understand how you grade, that's going to knock him down a little bit.
Hold the phone.
Correct.
Is the scheme we only play against run offenses? Because then I understand. If it's, hey, just get after the quarterback, I don't give a shit if you're putting him out there as a freaking nickelback. He will get after the quarterback.
All right, here, Newt.
Let's do it. Let's hear this.
I'll sort it by my weighted board. So my weighted board now, because edges get a higher boost than D tackles do. My top 3 players at the Senior Bowl would be, let's see, Parker would be 1. Then it would go, let's see, I think Mesidor is 2.
Okay.
Based off that, then Banks, and then Bailey.
Okay.
So with my weighted board, Bailey is my 30th overall player.
All right, I can get on board with that a little bit more, I guess.
For me, Bailey is just, it's not that we're like, okay, you only play against, like, are we only playing in the NFC, or he gets drafted to the AFC North, he's a bust. Like, no, I understand his appeal as a pass rusher, but I think Jim really hit the nail on the head where it's like, not only do I think his pass rushing is, he has a way of winning where it's like, yeah, he's going to win a lot with the way he wins currently as a pass rusher. But he's not like a fully fleshed out, all dimensions kind of guy that can win with several different ways with counters based off of that. And then he also is just an active, like, negative in the run. Like, even tight ends, like, I'm pretty sure the Utah game, he was getting blocked, his ass blocked by tight ends up and down the field, him and Romello Height. Both those guys, kind of similar to me, were both just dudes who were getting dominated by smaller dudes in the run game. And okay, you're going to step up into the next level, and you got Darnell Washington across from you. I don't care if if you only run 40% of run plays, he's useless for 40% of that game. So like for me, he needs to either go to a scheme that puts him as more of an off-ball position, like a 3-4 backer, giving him space to work with as a run defender. He cannot play in an even front team. Unless you're going to have him specifically as a third down player, if you have him on the even front and I'm the quarterback, I'm checking the run to his side every time because I know that if we're sending a kickout block or if it's just downing. Like, could you imagine Garrett Bowles down blocking like David Bailey? Like he would get annihilated. Like so, like a lot of these guys that are very skill or scheme specific definitely take a bigger hit. Whereas Big Citrus on an unweighted board, he can come in and he definitely was not as good as he was last year. I do still have him as a second round player, but he is a player that can play one tech, can play three tech, can play nose, zero tech. He can play across scheme, and he has shown both the ability to defend the run and in the past pass rush with some good athleticism. So he has a lot more versatility to his game at a higher level across the board.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's absolutely fair. You know, I joke a little bit, but that weight that Bailey carries and where he's at is definitely going to, as Jim said, you know, keep him within that outside linebacker, that scheme specific spot. I think that when you take a look at it, in my opinion, he's really good. But I kind of laugh at this. When I did my top 10 board for Cheesehead TV, I had a guy call me out. He's like, "The fuck are you doing? You've got Bailey outside of your top 10 or like as not a first round grade when everyone else is in the top 10. I'm like, it's my grade, man. Like he's probably like number 20 on my board. But Owen over here has got him, like 35. And it makes me feel like, oh man, I'm a little high on Bailey.
Well, so it's interesting, right? Because like Dale would take Bailey at 10 for the Bengals.
Yep.
He's one of the 5 best targets for the Bengals at 10. Nearly anybody that does mock drafts for the Cowboys likes Bailey at 12 for the Cowboys. Now, the Cowboys just traded Micah Parsons because he couldn't stop the run. The owner let us know that. Go ahead, Owen.
He's not drafting David Bailey then, if that's the case. Like, so I'm reading my write-up again, and because I'm trying to go back and like say, like, is my opinion changed? I just haven't updated this. Like, no, I have him like full marks for explosiveness and lateral athleticism. He is almost completely maxed out when it comes to my pass rush grade for him, because I think he still does have a good inside counter to some of his speed rush moves, because he has a strong core and has some inside steps and rips that he's shown up. Like, he has a deep bag of pass rush moves. He's just not going to be able to run through your face and do the collapse the angle and compress style run. He's going to have to set you up with speed and then have an inside step move, which he's going to win with. He's going to be like, a perennial close to double-digit sack guy, if not over double-digit sacks a season, which is going to be why he's drafted in the top 10. I'm not arguing that he's going to get drafted in the top 10. I just think you need to be that specific team for him to fit. If I like, there's going to be, when I go back and I'm going to do grades on all the picks for the first round, if a team that runs a 4-3 base drafts David Bailey in the top 10, I'm going to give them a significantly worse grade if a team that ran a 3-4 or a multiple front drafted him in the same exact spot in the top 10, because the fit is just like, it's like oil and water when it comes to that one scheme versus the other scheme, especially the Cowboys, how to utilize Micah Parsons, mixing him with off ball and on ball. That's where you're going to see him be able to get maximized. And I think Mowgli is a David Bailey fan because now he's yelling at me because I'm going on this rant about a clear first round draft pick. But I mean, I'm just not the biggest David Bailey fan.
Also, really quick, Micah Parsons can't defend the run. Last game he started with the Packers, first defensive drive of the game, forced fumble on a run up the middle. I don't know where that comes from. Micah Parsons is a fine run defender, not a liability whatsoever. Nothing comparable to David Bailey.
I mean, I agree. I also think Micah Parsons is a significantly better run defender than David Bailey.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, so Jerry Jones will say anything when he's, that's what he says when somebody...
You can just leave it at that. Jerry Jones will say anything.
It's Jerry Jones.
Yeah. So when we look at the defensive linemen at the Senior Bowl, you guys each just talked about your top 3 or 4 guys. Who do you think has a lot to gain like relative to your board. So, like, you have a question on the player, and seeing him in a one-on-one might answer a question, and he might get like a 16 to 32 spot bump on your board.
So I'm going to take this in a little bit of a different way. It's just a one-off. I think player to gain, maybe not on my board, but like with Consensus Media, Caleb Banks is going to be a player given his season this year at Florida, playing 3 games. I know that, some people were thinking that he would easily go back to school, and then it, really started to come out that, hey, he's going to declare, and it became a foregone conclusion, especially when he came back for Florida when they were clearly out of any bowl contention and their season was pretty much over. So I think that, not on my board personally, I think he's phenomenal, but I think that there's a perception that he's got to clear a hurdle, and this All-Star event is maybe not a hurdle, but this All-Star event is the first hurdle for me. And I'm not going to say to move up. I've already got him this high. Quintavious Hutchins out of Boston College, I think, is a guy that I really liked him. He comes in, I say really liked. He was number 17 on my board. But I have a early day 3 grade on Quintavious Hutchins. I am looking at that with the level of competition that they played and some of the elements to his game. I want to see him continue to hold his own. I don't need to see him go out there and just, be a absolute train wrecker. But if he can go in there, he can have a really good week. I think that he could be a guy that I feel a lot more comfortable with my grade on him. Like I said, as an early day 3 guy. And then a guy that could move up for me, I think Grayson Halton. I really like Grayson Halton. I think he's done so much for himself throughout the year. I would love to get eyes on him again later in the season after he took over the starting job for Oklahoma. And I think that he could do a lot if he can really maximize his opportunities as a interior pass rusher, because that's his game. He's an interior pass rusher along that defensive line. You're not getting him to be a space eater. You're getting him to get after the quarterback. And if he can prove that he can do that, I think he's going to move up my board a little bit.
So, Newt, couple things. Where is Caleb Banks on your board right now?
My overall big board, once again, not complete. I've got a couple positions I haven't even hit yet. I have him right outside of a first-round grade. He's number 21 overall.
Okay, and you don't think he's going to move up too much higher than that from the Senior Bowl?
I would guess that I will have him on my final big board somewhere between 15 and 25.
Yep. So, Owen, if I remember Grayson Halton, because you were one of the podcasters that did Oklahoma over the summer. And I think you also looked at Oklahoma again really early in the season. That was actually a player I remembered you saying, like, he doesn't play a lot of snaps, but that is if I remember correctly, you're like, that's the body that you want, the defensive tackle, and you just want more reps.
Yeah, he especially coming into the season with the summer scouting, that was a guy that didn't play a ton leading up into this season, whether from injury or just from a lack of rotation. But I liked a lot of what I saw from him, especially as, like Newt was saying, this more twitchy, explosive, like pass rush style player. I do think he has some pretty good, as Newt would say, meat hooks on him. I don't know what his actual hand size is, but he plays with some bigger power or ability to stand his ground more so than other players that are sub 290 at D tackle.
9.5 inch hands.
Listen, threshold to threshold, I don't care what you label it where you need him to be at for meat hook status.
Double digit. You gotta be double digits if you got meat hooks. Like Daryl Jackson Jr. 11 and 8th. Those are some meat hooks.
Those are some meat hooks right there. But like, if you asked me who's a better like interior run defender and can hold up against strength, I'm taking Grayson Halton over like Zane Durant 10 times out of 10 all day every day. Even though Zane Durant has the meat hooks, you know what I'm saying.
He does. Zane Durant's got some meat hooks on him, and there's no other way to put it.
Use him, apparently.
He's got 10.5 inch hands on a 6'1", 290 frame. That man.
Maybe he will be a tight end then.
Maybe. I think, and I really like that call out actually, because I think, the players that are directly above Halton on my board are Daryl Jackson Jr., Zane Durant, and now Onyedim. And I think that of all of those guys, I'm probably going to be one of the highest guys out there on Onyedim. Zane Durant, while I'm higher on them than Owen, I don't really love him. I think that there is so many things to his game that, kind of leave these question marks, especially that tweener position that he plays along the defensive line. And Daryl Jackson Jr. is Daryl Jackson Jr., where, once again, he's the girl from the trailer park from a bad home life that, we're still preying on, as Owen says. So I don't love.
We're losing the entire trailer park demographic now.
Oh man, to anyone out there that lives in a trailer home, I do not at all condone. I'm not condone. I respect your lifestyle.
We're having a good time.
It's gone.
Anybody who missed that reference from the 4 podcasts ago that we made it, they're so lost.
But it's not until when I get to a Mod Mountain Senior at 8 for me, and I'm like, all right, I feel really, really good about that player, and then I think the guys that are stacked up in front of him on my board, I feel really confident about. But all of those guys that I just listed, they have a lot of question marks surrounding them. And I think Grayson Halton, if he can, erase some of his question marks, has an opportunity to step up.
Okay. So I think media is going to be all over Lee Hunter.
Yes.
During the Senior Bowl.
They already are all over him.
Why don't we go on record and say, Lee Hunter, there's draft professors that are taking Lee Hunter at the back of round 1 right now. The last pick of round 1 or the first pick of round 2 when we do various mocks. What's the earliest you would take Lee Hunter?
End of round 2? If I'm picking in the 60s, I would open that door. Okay. I've got a round 3 grade on him. He's 61 on my board right now. He's going to move back a little bit. But yeah, I think end of round 2 is where that conversation starts to open up for me. I've got ahead of him Dominique Orange, obviously, Caden McDonald, Kristen Miller, Caleb Banks, and Peter Woods, as well as Aaron Graves, who I once again know that I am higher on him than others. But that's, 5 guys who I think a lot of people, I could say, yeah, these guys are better than Lee Hunter. I think Owen would be around that same feelings.
So Owen, if somebody said that Lee Hunter provides more pass rushing upside than Caden McDonald and therefore should be higher on the board, buy or sell that argument?
Buy, because that's where I'm at. I'm not the biggest Caden McDonald guy. So you're talking to one of the heads of the Caden McDonald hate club. I mean, I have him in round 3. He's my D tackle number 7.
Dude, I think Clint's got a top 10 grade on Caden McDonald.
That's I'm not gonna. I won't say much about that, but I'm not there with him. I'll just say that.
Right.
Lee Hunter is 2 spots ahead of him for me, and to say where he's gonna go. I think same area where Newt has mid to late second, depending on what your value is for drafting your nose tackle that high, a guy that I think is a great nose tackle, but it becomes, okay, what can he provide you as a pass rusher? And I don't think he provides much immediate impact with that area as well. So that's why I have a Dominique Orange ahead of him. I don't see a Tyleek Williams rise for him late in the draft process because he doesn't offer as much athletically or pass rush styles wise as we talked about with Tyleek Williams coming out of last year.
Okay.
Also,
is there anything Lee Hunter can do at the Senior Bowl for you guys to bump your grade up 16 to 32 spots?
16 to 32 spots? No.
Meaning move them up about a full round.
No. I not at the Senior Bowl. No. If I get a rise that big, it's going to be a day 3 guy. I would have to see a guy to move from the second to the first round once the entire season has been played, come out with, a very well-documented reason why he had some injury that hampered him, and then absolutely ball out in the Senior Bowl, and then put up a 10 RAS at the Combine, and then hear from Adam Schefter and other insiders that he just absolutely blew away his player interviews. Then, in that situation alone, I will move a guy from my second round grade to my first round grade. So Lee Hunter, I cannot wait to see that happen. But if it doesn't, I'm probably going to keep him right around that top between 50 and 75.
So I couldn't disagree with Newt more on that. So, for me, so I just went and checked it. So on my big board, again, I'm doing the unweighted one because that's just what my film grades are. And a lot of these guys, I haven't gone back and updated like the corners or some of the quarterbacks that are on my board that I definitely need to get the hell out of there. Like Drew Allar is still up there. So it's like, we need to update that section of it. Being a Bills fan, quarterback isn't my biggest urgency for when watching film, but for me, like, so 2 points separates. Lee Hunter is a 78 grade on my board, and I go up. It's all points or half points. And then the cluster that is around where pick player 50 is, so 16 spots up, is like Caden Proctor is my 50th player on my board. He's an 80, so it's 2 points separating them. And for me, Lee Hunter's pass rushing grade is not like the lowest because I do think he wins pretty good with like effort. When it comes effort and some good athleticism, just having size to overwhelm guys and have that pass rush gravity we talked about with like a Chris McClellan, or Chris McClendon. McClellan, that's what his name is.
McClellan.
Mixing up names, yeah. But if he can, when he's let loose, like in the Senior Bowl, pass rush reps 101, if you can go out there and show you have some juice, you have some moves that you didn't previously have, either because whether it was in the scheme and you were asked to just rush a specific lane and you were not asked to leave that space. Whereas now if you go to the NFL and they let you loose, like, hey, it's 3rd and 12, go get the quarterback. Don't worry about rush lanes right now. Can you pull something out of the bag? Can you win some of these one-on-ones against these top or higher end prospects? I think that can specifically raise him up. And if it's a difference between 2 points on a grade and he shows off some more, flexibility, explosiveness, pass rush moves, he can easily get up into that range of like top 50 player for me, and get up that 16 to like 20-ish spots that Jim's talking about.
Okay. And again, I'm beginning to learn how different people grade. So I like the difference in analysis techniques. Newt, anybody else at the Senior Bowl you want to give a shout out to on the defensive line or edge room?
Dude, this edge group is so stacked. Like, just looking through it, I think we podcasted on a dozen, if not more, of these guys. I want to shout out the whole group because I think this year at the Senior Bowl, the strongest position group. I haven't looked in depth at the offensive side of the ball, but I went over it and I was blown away at the defensive ends in this year's Senior Bowl group because it seems like aside from, I don't know, Bain and Bailey, damn near everyone else that is in that top 100, 150 conversation is going to be there. So I think this is going to be a lot of fun. Derek Moore, I really am looking forward to seeing him. I think he's a guy, like I said before, has an opportunity to leapfrog Malachi Lawrence and make that push for one of the higher edges that are drafted in this year's draft class. I want to see my boy Max Llewellyn and what he's able to do in those one-on-ones. I think that, he's going to be a DPR at the next level, but if he can show out and really solidify himself as a high-end one, I think that's going to help him out. And then TJ Parker, I think just there's so much around him with the year that he had this year and people, kind of having him in the conversation of not maybe a top 32 guy, which for me blows me away. But I'm looking for him to kind of continue to show that, hey, he's still got it. He is that guy. And hopefully, he is, and we are seeing that. So a couple guys along there that I'm seeing that I'm looking forward to.
How about you, Owen? Anybody else on this Senior Bowl defensive line roster you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, so I love the TJ Parker shout out because he's a guy that's going to really benefit from just getting one-on-one work and showing off that athleticism against other top-end athletes and showing that difference in his style. There's a lot of guys here that I really love, kind of what Newt was talking about. Obviously, we talked about Bryson Easton earlier. I think if he can get, someone gets their hands on him and he's more consistent at the Senior Bowl and shows those flashes more consistently, I do think he can be a guy that really ups his game there. I do want to shout out Gabe Akis. You know, I'm the king of the Gabe Akis fan club, and I'm ready for him to put to bed all this slander that he's going to be a DPR at the next level. Not because he's not going to succeed in the one-on-ones, but because he's going to be allowed to play more sound run defense in a scheme that benefits from his size on the edge there, allowing him to play some more inside shades. I do think he was. I think he was at least a adequate run defender at Illinois. I don't think he's a great run defender. I do think that's an area he can get better at, but he was smart enough and had the size enough to overcome that. I didn't think he was a great one, but I don't think he's a black hole void like Newton seems to assume he is at the edge there. But outside of that, going to like the D tackle room, another player that I really liked and that I got my first eyes on that we haven't talked about yet is Devin Eastern from Minnesota, where I don't have a high grade on him. He's in like around 6 or 7 grades, but he's 6'6", 290, can move, has a ton of length. He's a bit stiff and high hipped, so like I don't think he's going to be, you know, a great player when it comes to run defense. But he had some impressive pass rush reps at Minnesota, especially against like Oregon. Oregon, he had a great game. And the fact that he has that size, he has that movement skills, I do think a lot of teams will end up falling in love with him. He can definitely be a guy that shows out because you're like, who is this monster that just showed up? Why have we not talked about him being at like a Big Ten school specifically in the past? So he's another guy that I don't have a high grade on, but I'm excited to see what he does. And then the last one I would shout out, another guy who's around 6'7", I think is going to be a more core special teams guy, but could be maybe a developmental piece for a 3-4 outside linebacker team, is going to be I already forgot how to say his name. I think it's Kean Sloan from NC State. He's 6'4", 250, more of a 3-4 outside backer, but he played a multiple of roles for NC State after transferring there from Louisville, if I'm correct, I remember correctly. But he's a guy that has some athletic limitations, but plays his ass off. It can make some lapses mentally, but also is just works so hard that he sometimes puts himself back into the right positions. He's just an overall like spark plug off the edge. If you give him some more space to work with against the run, I do think he'll do better than as a point of attack defender. But I do think that's a guy that he's gonna be, of all these other players that we've kind of debated are who are these guys we haven't really talked about or some names we haven't heard of. He might have one of the longer careers in the NFL just because I do think his mentality, size profile, and effort plays will translate well to especially like covering kickoffs and stuff like that. So he's a player that I do think will earn some fans here at the Senior Bowl this week.
Hey,
whatever it is.
Question for you. Just I was looking through that as you were going through, just seeing any more of my guys. Where do you have, and we've had this conversation already with him once, but not on a big board. Where do you have Tim Keenan the third on your defensive tackle ranking?
I mean, I don't love talking about players I don't actively like, but he's a UDFA player for me.
Wow. Okay.
I was significantly lower on him. I just didn't. Maybe it was the games I saw. I gladly would take recommendations for games to watch of Tim Keenan. I specifically
what did you watch?
I'll pull it up right now. For me, he was just like a standard nose tackle, but like lacked any of that athletic juice. I watched Georgia, Oklahoma, and Tennessee from this past season.
I watched Georgia and Georgia. Figured why not double dip on some of the best that you're going to see, but yeah, he was a late day 3 guy for me. So it's not like I'm firmly disagreeing. I think it's another one where I'm just kind of trying to check myself. He's another guy that I keep seeing in top 100s, and I'm not there. And I think it's just people wanting to kind of fill the top 100 with defensive tackles and push some of these guys up their board. But yeah, I'm not there, and I wanted to see if I was alone.
Yeah, so as I listen to you guys, like when you do the scouting reports, I don't see day 2 for a player like Keenan, right? And so like what I was listening for, you guys said he's basically a fire hydrant, right? He's somebody you're going to plug in there to stop the run, kind of thing. Well, players like CJ West and Jordan Phillips went in round 4 last year. Those guys typically don't go on day 2.
Yeah. There's a lot of players like in the past, like this was screams for Darian Mathis or Siaki Ika to me, where people are enamored by a dude who can eat up 2 or 3 blocks on his own. But then you look deeper into it, it's like, okay, he's eating up these blocks. He's not making plays on it. He's not a non-factor in pass rush. Like even like when it comes to like what I've been talking about with McClellan or even a Lee Hunter, where it's like you have that gravity where you have enough power and size that you have to draw a double team anyway. You know, you're not this elite pass rusher. He just doesn't have that either. He's getting 1-on-1 blocked. He's not like this impressive size profile, 6'2", 320. I guess he could stand to gain some stuff here in the Senior Bowl if he shows out with maybe some hidden athleticism I didn't see on film or some pass rush reps I didn't expect. But for me, he's a guy that fits in that same mold where it's like, okay, I'm lower on him. He's just your run-of-the-mill nose tackle. There's going to be a dozen of those guys you can grab in the later day or, round 3 guys. Like I even have him graded very similar to like Jeffrey Mba from SMU. It's another guy, 6'6", big old dude in the middle, can eat up blocks, but is athletically limited and struggles to, make close and make plays on his own because he just is. But he's a big guy. He can eat up blocks. So those guys are kind of a dime dozen for me, and I don't really put a lot of value into them.
Also, certified small hands from Keenan, sub 9-inch hands.
Oh wow!
Yep.
Yeah.
What's the opposite of meat hooks?
Vegan hooks? I don't know.
I was thinking you like vegan hooks, or I was like thinking like
lettuce wraps. Lettuce wraps.
Hooks and vegan
Lettuce
fingers.
wraps.
He's got certified lettuce wraps.
There you
some
go.
salad fingers.
Oh, that's the one right there. Certified salad fingers.
Well, with that, we should probably do podcaster identification. So, Owen, you want to let everybody know about the weekly huddle and the other things that you do?
Yeah, so I'm here on YouTube. I'm actually currently simul-streaming this right now to the Weekly Huddle YouTube channel. I'm going to be doing some top 10 videos in the lead up to the release of the Cheesehead TV draft guide, because I'm going to be writing the interior offensive line section for that in a published article. I'll be posting all my other top 10s leading up to that, and that'll be the last one I do after that's published, so I'm not stepping on my own publication there. But that'll be something I'm ramping up towards and working on finalizing my section of the Cheesehead TV. So if you want to go check that out, you can check out wherever they're going to be posting that on when we get to closer to the draft. But yeah, takes on Twitter, YouTube videos every so often, and then streams here. Tuesday nights, we do a Buffalo Bills centered one. We did Senior Bowl receivers last night, and then at 9 p.m. on Tuesdays, and then Wednesday nights, obviously here with Newt at 9 p.m.s. Obviously disagreeing a lot more tonight than we have otherwise. I told you the Bears jersey was going to set the tone for today.
Oh, that's what we need. We need.
I like how he just
more
done
Chicago Bears in the podcast with Newt.
He just got done talking about he's writing for Cheesehead TV. He's wearing a Bears jersey during this. It's ludicrous. Oh my gosh!
I can put the Malik Willis jersey back on.
Yeah, that'd be better than that atrocity. So Newt Weston, you guys can find me at NFL Draft _Weston on the app formerly known as Twitter. I also do run ZeroTechDraft.com, where I've been trying to push out some scouting reports, whether it's me as a writer, some other guest writers. And then probably my biggest commitment this year has been a new commitment, Cheesehead TV, draft analysis with a lot of their YouTube and media content, going through top 10 guys, going through some scouting reports, doing all-star event previews, as well as some mock draft and other Packer-centric elements. So you can check me out over there on Cheesehead TV, as well as a ton of other Packer content if you are a green and gold fan, or like I said, you enjoy the draft, we're talking about that on there as well. But primarily, when I'm talking about the draft in its entirety, it is here, 9 p.m. on Mrs. R Relevant with Jim and Owen.
So I made the change. Malik Willis, Liberty Flames, the better Packer quarterback on the roster currently. So double layered insult with both jerseys. I had one going for each.
Well, I want to just first of all say, please follow Owen and Newt. So I'm sitting here pointing to your pictures, and then nobody can see where I'm pointing to. But follow Owen, follow Newt. We can't make the podcast a Draft Professor without Newt and Owen showing up. So Newt shows up once a week, Owen shows up twice a week, and that's what keeps the channel moving. So please give them each a follow. In addition to that, we are doing live mock drafts every Friday. So Brandon, come on in and draft for Houston. But every Friday from 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern, we're doing live mock drafts, 3 rounds, and you get to see where everybody else values the players. So we were talking at the beginning of the podcast about, where is Malachi Lawrence graded? And some people have him higher. Where is Zion Young graded? Some people have him higher than others. You get to see that when you do a 32-person mock. Don't believe the boards in your simulator, whichever one you use. Come do a 32-person mock. That will give you a much more random experience. So for Owen, myself, and Newt, and the 110 people at the Draft Professor, thank you so much for tuning in. Enjoy your Wednesday night. We will see you for 2 podcasts again tomorrow. Thank you, everybody.